Hey, so I wanted to address an issue of a common concern that is brought up with index universal life versus whole life, type of scenario, and it's a matter of return. Okay, actual returns versus a market return versus a fixed return, right? A guaranteed return versus a fluctuating return, right? And I want to do a comparison here. Look at the actual market, and over the last 20 years and show how what the difference is, right? Because there's a lot of fear that is interjected that is unfounded when it comes to market, the market and the ups and downs and the fluctuations, where a guaranteed fixed return is proposed as a superior option in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong or bad. I'm just saying that if you look at the numbers, look at the math, it just doesn't add up. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, when I was getting licensed in the industry, in the financial services, and getting securities licenses, there would be these like case studies that you had to. They'd give you a story and identify. And so you're supposed to be able to read these stories and say, okay, this is what I'd recommend based off of their situation. And every single time somebody wanted to beat taxes and inflation, or talked about that in the story, the market was the answer every single time. Why? Because the market's designed to beat taxes and inflation. It's designed to be able to give you better return than the fixed return. Because the same stories that say, they just wanted a steady return and knew exactly what it was, and they didn't really care about beating taxes and inflation, then the answer was always a fixed return. Well, a whole life policy is a fixed return, right? I mean, you're getting a guaranteed interest rate plus a little bit of a dividend, and but over time, historically, these policies have not really paid the dividend that was illustrated. Now, I know I could get a firestorm of whole life guys saying that that's not true, but I have plenty of examples that where over 30 years the client barely has more in their account than what the guaranteed portion of the illustration showed, right? And there's a lot of people that talk about IUL and how that doesn't produce the return that was expected. Well, that's what I'm going to show you here, is that if we just look at the market, the returns are expected. Now, if your return is not what you expected as far as dollars in your account, maybe it's how you funded the plan or how it was structured, but it doesn't have to do with the index and the index not performing, right? So with that being said, let's dive into some numbers here, because here, what we're showing here is that, and I just want to focus on this one column here on the S&P 500, okay, this right here, okay, this is what we want to focus on. So a lot of times they say, oh, well, the S&P 500 has averaged 7% over the last 30 years, or whatever the case may be, and that may be 100% accurate, right? But then it's talked about as if that's the only return. You're never going to get more than 7 in any one year, so that if you have a losing year, right, that fixed 4% of your whole life is going to be far superior over time, because if you got a 7 and then a 0, right, then your fixed return would have caught up. But that's a half truth. That's not how it works. I'm going to show that even with the 0 years over the last 20 years, if my index was an S&P 500 index, I not only would have doubled or my returns on most years, I would have tripled that a 4% guarantee most of the time, right? And that's what we can see here. So here we have these years, these years that are green, you would have gotten 0. So there's 6 years here, Okay, then there's a year here in 2015 and a year here in 2007 where you got less, where the market returned less than 4%. So in those 8 years, 8 out of 20, you would have gotten more return, you would have gotten a better return with a 4% guarantee in your whole life than on those. So on the rest of the 12 years though, what did we get? Let's count up how many years of the 12 did we get triple the return. So we would have gotten 12% or better, right? And so let's count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it's not quite 12, but you got 27 the year before. Or if we go over here and say you got you got 14 and a half, you hit a cap, so you got more than 12, right? More than 12, more than 12, more than 12, right? More than 12. You had extra on the other one, so we'll count that as 12, right? More than 12, more than 12. Same thing, more than 12, more than 12. Well, almost, but once again, we got extra on other years, more than 12, more than 12. Okay, so all but 1 year right here, 2005, where we still got more than 4%. So more than 50% of the time, not only did we get more than the 4% return, but we got triple the return. So if I get 1 year of 12%, and then I have 3 years of 0 because the market tanked, right? 3 years of 0, I just barely, that 4% guarantee took 3 years just to get to that 1 year of 12. Right? Then you go, this is just with the S&P 500. There's other companies there's indexes that we have that are no cap, and I have clients that in the beginning of 2000 when the market was at highs, they were getting 19 and 22%, in some accounts 30% in their index universal life. Now you cannot tell me that, so if you got 20%, which is, these are real returns, right? In any one particular year. It doesn't mean you're going to get that every single year, right? But but I have actual client examples where people got these kinds of returns. If you got 20% in 1 year, your whole life, that whole life policy, or that 4%, I quit identifying it as whole life. Let's just call it a return. That 4% guaranteed return, I would have to get 0 for 5 in the market, in the index, 5 years in a row for that 4% guaranteed interest rate just to catch up to that 1 year of 20. Right? This is not what's being talked about. It's talking about, oh, well, it'll only ever get 7 because that's what it averaged. Well, I'm going to do another video that talks about average return is not real return. Right? Real return includes all the ups and all the downs, but if you have a guarantee against loss, your average changes because you don't ever go backwards, right? You get to keep everything, right? So the returns of the market are meant to outpace a fixed guaranteed interest rate. That's what it's designed for. That's why people invest in it. Okay, are there ups and downs and fluctuations? Is it guaranteed per year? No, but guarantees are expensive. Risk is free. Now, in this case, your risk is the fact that you don't know what exact interest rate you're going to get every year, but there is no market risk because it's guaranteed against loss. Right? So guarantees are expensive. Risk is free. That's why a universal life policy could potentially be cheaper, right, than a whole life, because we're not trying to protect a guarantee interest rate. Does that make sense? I want your comments below. Subscribe. Stay tuned for additional videos that relate to this concept of return, average return versus real return.